Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. All right, so page number 34, everyone. Because we have not touched upon the Anapana Sutra for a little bit, maybe it would also be a good idea to brush through the areas that we have gone over. For those of you who are unable or do not have the link, I am pasting the link to the sutra on the chat. Sutra is right there. And would it help if I share my screen for you all to look at the sutra through the screen? Yeah, okay.
Yes, please.
There we go. All right. So we should be starting on the area of Dhammanupassana today. But before we go on to Dhammanupassana, let us just quickly go through okay. I will just read the English of the sutra so that we simply recap upon what we have already done. Yes? Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One stayed in the palace of Migaru's mother. On one occasion, the Blessed One was staying in the palace of Migaru's mother in the eastern park near Savatthi, together with many well-known elder disciples, the Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Mahamoggallana, the Venerable Mahakassapa, the Venerable Mahakachana, the Venerable Mahakottila, the Venerable Mahakappina, the Venerable Mahachunda, the Venerable Anuradha, the Venerable Revata, the Venerable Ananda, and other very well-known disciples. Now at the time, elder monks were exhorting and instructing new monks. Some elder monks were exhorting and instructing 10 monks. Some elder monks were exhorting and instructing 20 monks. Some elder monks were exhorting and instructing 30 monks. Some elder monks were exhorting and instructing 40 monks. And new monks, having been exhorted and instructed by the elder monks, had attained successive stages of higher distinction. Sorry. At the time, it was the Uposatha day of the 15th on the full moon night of the invitation ceremony, which is a Pavarana, right? Which is a Pavarana. The Pavarana means the end of the Vasana Kala. The Blessed One was seated in the open, surrounded by the community of monks. Then surveying the very silent community of monks, the Blessed One addressed them thus. Monks, I am content with this progress. My mind is content, monks, with this progress. So monks, assert all the more effort to attain the unattained, to achieve the unachieved, to realize the unrealized. I will wait right here in Shravasti for the Kaumudi full moon of the fourth month. The monks of the countryside heard. It is said that the Blessed One will remain in Shravasti for the Kaumudi full moon of the fourth month. The monks of the countryside then left for Shravasti to see the Blessed One. And the elder monks exhorted and instructed the new monks all the more intensively. Right? Now, the Buddha has promised to stay on for another month, for another month. And the monks all the more are excited to get the best out of it. So they start instructing, the elder monks start instructing the new monks more intensively. And more monks are arriving into the monastery where the Buddha was. Some elder monks were exhorting and instructing 10 monks. Some elder monks were exhorting and instructing 20 monks, 30 monks, 40 monks. And the new monks, having been exhorted and instructed by the elder monks, attained successive stages of high distinction. At the time, it was opposed the day of the 15th, the full moon night of the Komudi full moon of the fourth moon. The Blessed One, seated in the open, surrounded by the community of monks, then surveying the silent community of monks, the Blessed One addressed them. Monks, this assembly is without idle talk, free of idle talk. It comprises of pure heartwood, right? What is the meaning of heartwood? Remember the simile that the Buddha gives. For a disciple who comes in search of, for a person who comes in search of something, the Buddha says, this person comes in search of the hardest part of the tree. And some, they break the leaves and they're satisfied with the leaves of the tree and they leave. Some break the branches and they leave. Some just take the bark and they leave. But then others, they would discard all of these things and go for the heartwood, which is the hardest part of the tree, and then go and make whatever it is that they intended to make from it in the first place. The people, what he is referring to, are those practitioners who have not got persuaded, discouraged, and the other word is, what's the other word? It starts with a D. What is the other word?
It's motivation.
No.
Motivation.
Not those who have not got distracted by anything else. They focused on what they've come to get, what they've come to achieve. That is the crowd he calls pure heartwood. He's calling the crowd that, right? Monks, such is the community of monks, such is this assembly. Purity, people who've really gained from the practice, which is worthy of offerings, worthy of hospitality, worthy of gifts, worthy of salutation with the lotus gesture, right? With the lotus gesture. An incomparable field of merit for the world. Monks, such is a community of monks, such is this assembly. That is a small gift given to it. That a small gift given to it, meaning the Sangha, becomes great, and a great gift greater. Monks, such is a community of monks, such is this assembly. That it is rare for the world to see such company. Such is the community of monks, such is this assembly. That it is worth going many leagues with only a traveling bag just to see such a company. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who are arahants, with mental cankers destroyed, who have lived the whole life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached their goal. Destroyed fetters of being completely liberated through direct knowledge. Such is the nature of the monks in this community of monks. Monks. There are in this community of monks those who, with the destruction of the 5 lower fetters, are spontaneously reborn in the pure abodes, and there attain final nirvana without ever returning from that world. Such is the nature of the monks in this community of monks. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who, with the destruction of the three fetters and with the diminishing of lust, hate, and delusion, are once returners, returning only once to the world to make an end of suffering. Such is the nature of the monks of this community. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who, with a total destruction of the three fetters, are stream winners, not bound for the lower world, sure of liberation, destined for awakening. Such is the nature of monks of this community. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of the four stations of mindfulness. Such is the nature of monks in this community. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of the four right exertions. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of the four spiritual bases of power. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of the four spiritual faculties. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of the five spiritual powers. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of the seven awakening factors. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of the Noble Eightfold Path. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who are devoted to the cultivation of loving kindness. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of compassion. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of altruistic joy, mudita. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of equanimity, upekha. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the meditation on the impurities. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of the perception of impermanence, anicca samnya bhavana. Monks, all right. Such is the nature of the monks in this community of monks. Monks, there are in this community of monks those who dwell devoted to the cultivation of mindfulness of the in and out breaths. Wow, what a community of monks. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right. Now, Anapana Sati Bhavana, right? Anapana Sati Bhavana. So if you do have the handout, a good reference for you to also recap on the Anapana Sati stages is on page number 14, right? If you have page number 14, I will quickly, 29, 14. Here. Right? The 16 steps of the Anapana Sati as Satipatthana. The 12. Now, as we go on, what we also discussed the last classes when we had it is the Satipatthana Sutra in this regard to the Anapana Sati Sutra. The Satipatthana way of practice has been explained in a specific fashion where you can progress with Anapana through the entirety of the Satipatthana practice, right? Through the entirety of the Satipatthana practice. Whilst this is one of the main sutras explaining an aspect of the Satipatthana Sutra, please also remember that there are other approaches to the Satipatthana, whilst Anapanasati approach is one of its main, right? Is one of its main. Now, today, we are supposed to be continuing along the contemplation of Dhammas, which is step 13, 14, 15, and 16, which you see on the screen. Now, this section is for meditators who have entered into jhana and are able to recollect the aspects and qualities of the jhana, right? Of the jhana, right? Of the jhana. We will run through this part of the sutra as well, because I think we've not done the sutra after starting it. We've not done it for a couple of weeks, so it might benefit everyone if we do run through it. But let us run through the steps just to sort of remind ourselves what we are going to sort of be going through before we go into the sutra, just as we did with the introduction. Step 1, experiencing a long breath. Step 2, experiencing a short breath. 3, experiencing the whole breath or the whole body of the breath. Or in another way that we put it, experiencing the breath within, or the entirety of the breath as a body within the body, right? Within the body. Step 4, calming the breath, right? Calming the breath, using the breath as an anchor to now let go, right? You do this after you see, or you are able to practically see the involuntary breath as and when it appears, as and when it processes, as and when it disappears. The upada titi banga moments of the breath, right? Which is what the whole body means partially, right? Contemplation of the feelings. Still continuing on the breath, right? Step 5, arousing joy. 6, arousing happiness. 7, understanding mental functions. 8, calming the joy and happiness. Calming the joy and happiness. Step 9, Chittanupassana, experiencing the mind. Step 10, shining the nimitta. Step 11, sustaining the nimitta. Step 12, freeing the mind. We'll go over the Dhammanupassana as well. Step 13, 4 steps to take after emerging from the jhana. Step 13, reflecting on impermanence. 14, reflecting on the fading away, viraga. Step 15, reflecting on the cessation, nirodha. And step 16, reflecting on letting go, patinissagga, right? Patinissagga. Let us come down to page number 26. Sorry, not 26, 29. The cultivation of mind, mindfulness of the in and out breath. Monks. When mindfulness of the in and out breath is developed and often cultivated, it is of great fruit and great benefit. Great fruit and great benefit. When the mindfulness of the in and out breath is developed and often cultivated, it brings the 4 stations of mindfulness to perfection. When the 4 stations of mindfulness are developed and often cultivated, they bring the 7 awakening factors to perfection. When the 7 awakening factors are developed and often cultivated, they bring true knowledge and liberation to perfection. And how, monks, is the mindfulness of the in and out breath developed? And how is it often cultivated so that it is of great fruit and great benefit? Here, monks, a monk who has gone to the forest or to a fruit of a tree or to an empty house, right? Empty house meaning sunyagara. Why have they found? Okay, the empty house, this means sunyagara. Sunyagara, they've translated as empty house, but this literally means sunyagara is a charnel ground, right? I don't know why they've translated it as empty house. Okay, maybe because gara means house, so maybe they've taken a direct answer, but that literally means a charnel ground, right? sits down and having crossed his legs and keeping his body upright, establishes mindfulness before him. Mindfully, he breathes in, mindfully, he breathes out, right? Establishes mindfulness before him. Now, as if you remember, I explained what the importance of this statement. Establishes mindfulness before him. How does one establish mindfulness? Mindfulness is a state of awareness, a state of awareness without judgment upon the present moment of experience. Here, the present moment of experience falls upon the object of the breath. Here, establishing mindfulness essentially means stabilizing the mind and devoting the mind towards the object. Manasa arumuna kerehi yomu kirima. E yomu vimemma satya padana satyata avasya padanam tika hedena. That is why they use the word parimukham. Right? Mukha is entrance. Parimukha is the opening towards the entrance. Parimukha, right? Essentially meaning, before you start or before you sit or close your eyes, you awaken a sense of awareness over this process that you are about to endeavor upon as you close your eyes and sit in meditation. This is the devotion of mind towards the object. Do you understand? Right? Now, if we might all recollect our own personal experience and the way that we've done things, there are times when we would have a lot going on, of course, as we usually do, and we will sit down and try to calm our minds then, isn't it? We sit down, we close our eyes, and we are now trying to calm our minds. What this statement essentially says is, let the calmness begin before you start your practice. To ensure that when you close your eyes, you have started the practice. Do you understand? A clear, defined moment of starting the practice, right? A clear clarity upon the devotion or the Shraddha element towards the practice, right? This statement, hence, is quite important. Establishes mindfulness before him. Mindfully breathes in, mindfully breathes out. The first tetrad, which we have just followed on page number 14, Kaya Anupassana. The first tetrad, contemplation of the body. Breathing in long, he knows I breathe in long. We have gone through all of this. So for detailed analysis, please go to the recordings. Yeah, we've discussed all of this in great detail with a lot of discussion. Breathing in long, he knows I breathe in long. Breathing out long, he knows I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he knows I breathe in short. Breathing out short, he knows I breathe out short. He trains himself thus, I will breathe in, experiencing the whole body. He trains himself thus, I will breathe out, experiencing the whole body. Right? I will breathe out, experiencing the whole body. Now, this is step 3, remember, right? Step 3, which is experiencing the whole body. How do you experience the whole body? Also, the body of the breath, and possibly the meditator is also able to see the breath within the entirety of the body. The expansion and contraction happening all across the body through the motions of breathing in and breathing out, right? Through the motions of breathing in and breathing out. In the Mahasi and the Pao techniques, the Pao technique follows a more traditional approach where it sticks to the tip of the nostrils. The Mahasi technique, Mahasi Sayadaw introduced this novel way, which was to observe the air element either at the tip of the nostrils, tip of the nose, or at the abdomen. Wherever it is the breath, the air element, right? The air element. So when we see the air element, this is in a way because why Mahasi Sayadaw comes out and says, look, this is the air element, is because we are traditional. We are following a traditional sort of teaching and practice, isn't it? And traditionally, what we know Anapana Sati to be is observing the breath at the tip of the nostrils, right? When we come down to the chest, the lower chest, the upper abdomen or the abdomen, people might sometimes assume that this is not Anapana Sati, right? Remember, it is to bring that sense of commonality and similarity of the breath at the tip of the nose, the chest, the lower chest, the upper abdomen, and the abdomen to one where Mahasi Sayadaw says it is simply the air element. The air element. So then, when we say it is the air element, what are we focusing upon? If anyone wants to sort of, put their hands up or ask something, you're most welcome to. Yeah, we are all pretty chill here. So, yeah. So, when we say the air element, then how do we look at this? What is the perspective by which we now approach the air element? The air element, the nature of the air element, not the air. Remember that. The air and the air element is two different things. The air element is only visible through the nature that it professes to be. The nature of that motion is what the air element is. So what do we then, or how do we then seek out the air element? The motion, right? The motion, right? Look at the definition on your Abhidhamma books, right? We have a clear definition of what the air element is. Look at that definition. And that definition will give you what the air element is and what we observe. We simply observe the motion, not the air. Do you understand? Right? When at times when people observe the air, they tend to start following the air. We do not follow the air. We observe the motion at a given location, whether it be the upper abdomen, the tip of the nose, right? We observe that motion at that given point. We do not follow the air, right? That's the difference between the air and the air element. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear? Right? There is a big difference. We do not follow the air, right? We do not follow the air. Moving on. He trains himself thus. I will breathe in, calming the bodily formation. He trains himself thus. I will breathe out, calming the bodily formation, right? Breathe out, calming the bodily formation. Right? Now, let's just read the definition of what this means here, right? Sankhara. The bodily formation is the in and out breath itself. This calming process may lead to development of jhana, but this is not the primary object, right? Achan Brahmavanso once says, once you have full attention on the breath, the next stage is where the beauty and the bliss have a chance to arise. This is where you calm down the object of the mind, the breath, by giving the suggestion, calm, calm, calm. Instead of just an ordinary breath that you are aware of, you deliberately, by an act of will, calm that breath down. it gets softer and softer, the more and more beautiful. But you have to be careful here. If you calm the breath in the fourth stage before you complete the third stage, that's when you go to sleep. When the attention is fully there, then calm the object inside your mind, right? Inside your mind. At this stage, you will have a very intimate relationship and understanding of the motion of the breath. As it arises and passes away along the long breath, short breath, and the whole body of the breath, you will develop a blissful relationship with the breath. It will become far more pleasant to work with the breath, not like what it was earlier when we were struggling to catch the breath or to observe the breath, right? You will harmonize with the breath. Right? Now, for some people, this calming process is a part of the essential present moment or coming into the present moment experience even more through the aspects of letting go, right? So for some people, the breath calms itself as you dwell deep into the present moment experience more and more as you go on, right? For some others, you have to calm it yourself, right? For some others, you have to calm it yourself. How do you do this? You do this as you are aware of the breath. The more that you grow to be aware, now listen to me very carefully. The more that you grow to be aware of the breath, you will know the breath very intimately. And when you connect with this breath, there will be a sense of peace, tranquility that you will now start deriving as an experience, as a fruit of your Anapana Sati practice, right? As a fruit of your Anapana Sati practice. You will come into the realization that as you now, one major realization that you make through this practice is where first you are controlling the breath and struggling to observe the breath in its organic form. Slowly, you come to grasp upon the technique of now letting go of the breath and simply observing it, but still you'll struggle time to time. You will shift between control and letting go, right? We have, I think, already experienced these areas, right? Where you struggle between controlling the breath and then all of a sudden you let go of the breath, but then you come back to controlling the breath again, right? After that stage, with a lot of experimentation, a lot of practice, not experimentation, with a lot of practice, you will now fine tune and polish yourself to an extent where now you jump. You make a jump where now all of a sudden you know how to simply let go and observe. Now the frequency of shifting between controlling and observing the involuntary breath, the span will now increase. So maybe at first you were able to do it, for a minute, and then after a minute you control again, and then you drop it, and then for a minute it persists, and then you control again. So you have these breaks. This will become longer. You will have more time to observe the breath up until at one specific point, you'll grasp the way of letting go and not catching it again. Do you understand? Right? Letting go and not controlling it again. You will simply be able to let go and not hold on to the breath. As you near to this position in your Anapana, the calmness aspect becomes far more clearer to you because you are truly now harmonizing with the breath in a way, right? Here, Now you instigate. You know for yourself, I was controlling and this is how I felt. When the controlling became lesser and lesser, this is how I felt. Now when the controlling is not happening, this is how it feels. Maybe if it is calmer, it feels it's even better. The mind will slowly now give you hints to say, calm the breath. You can calm it more. Do you understand? Right? This is, remember when I say the mind is saying it, this is in no way vitarka, right? This is in no way vitarka. This is like an insight that arises, right? This is an insight that arises because by the time that you are able to observe the whole body of the breath, your hindrances will it has to be subdued to a certain extent. And then this arises. Now you instigate a process of calming the breath, where the breath becomes subtle, softer, yet you are aware of the breath. Yes, Samantha.
Yes, Bhante. I just want to clarify what you mean by controlling the breath, because I thought that we're not controlling anything. We're just simply observing the breath.
Yeah.
And just staying with the breath. Yeah. And then is that so? At some stage, when you find that you're not feeling the breath, then you can get to, start panicking and then say, oh, where's it gone? And then start trying to catch the breath. Is that what you mean by controlling? And then, or just, just stay with the breath and just, as it gets finer and finer, just be with it without trying to control, to find where the breath is. So what do you mean by controlling, please?
By controlling, Samantha, what I mean is that position where you're trying to observe the breath, right? The in and out breath. Now, we know that we try to observe the involuntary organic breath. But that process of breathing in and breathing out, sometimes unknown, actually most of the time unknowingly, you think you're observing the involuntary breath, but you're actually controlling it.
Oh, right? Yes.
Especially now, for example, the long breath and the short breath, right? If you take the long breath and the short breath, those are moments of that we sometimes struggle to see the organic long and short breath, because when we say long, we feel like we need to breathe in long. That is control.
Oh, I see. Yes, yeah. To fit in with the Sutta, exactly. Yeah.
To fit with the observation, the awareness, right? So without being, because we are at first, because it's such a subtle object, at first we are unable to see the organic involuntary unknowingly, and sometimes we think, we sometimes think it is involuntary, but it is actually voluntary, right? That is what I mean by the control element.
Yeah, I got it now. Thank you, Bhante. Excellent.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. All right. He trains himself thus. I will breathe in calm in the body. He trains himself thus. I will breathe out calming the bodily formation. Right? Vedanapasana, the second tetrad, contemplation of feelings. He trains himself thus. He trains himself thus. I will breathe in experiencing zest, right? He trains himself thus. I will breathe out experiencing zest. He trains himself thus. I will breathe in experiencing joy. Trains himself thus. I will breathe out experiencing joy. He trains himself thus. I will breathe in experiencing the mental formations. He trains himself thus. I will breathe out experiencing the mental formations. He trains himself thus. I will breathe in calming the mental formations. He trains himself thus. I will breathe out calming the mental formations. Right? Calming the mental formations. right? Now here, what we look at in the Chittanupassana, in the Vedananupassana is, first, we are arousing joy. Second, we are arousing happiness, piti, sukha. Remember, the reason for this is within the Satipatthana process, as we go on, if we do not have priti and sukha as a part and parcel of our practice, in dry vipassana, right? In dry vipassana, what we find is that meditators get bored. Meditators can often begin experiencing a lack of energy. Meditators can feel a sense of monotony with the practice, with feelings of equanimity, not the equanimity of jhana, but that sense of feeling nothing almost, right? This can be an experience that could suffocate the practice in a certain way, right? In Vedananupassana, what we do, or within the Anapanasati Sutra, why we speak of this experiencing of joy and experiencing of happiness is to also bring about a sense of pleasure with regards to the practice that we have now undertaken. Do you understand? Right? Without that happiness that we experience or that we focus on, we could at times feel a sense of blandness. Do you understand? A sense of blandness, right? This happiness and joy further strengthens the practice in a way that we will be energized to go deeper into vipassana or deeper into samadhi, right? Deeper into vipassana or deeper into samadhi or both, right? Do you understand? Any questions?
But can I ask something, please?
Yes, dear.
Can I ask something? But I'm a little confused. I'm sorry, Bhante. Now, when we did this before, I know I have not followed some of the lessons when I was in Sri Lanka, but the way I remembered one time listening to it, in that the second tetrad, so we say it's piti and we say it's sukha. So last time I remember when I listened to you, the way I remember it, I may be wrong, you say the piti, you say it's experiencing the joy that it, and that it because that, and that's experiencing, you say joyful interest. And then the sukha, like what you're telling now, is a happiness. Mm. And that's what I think you repeat. But in this thing that you have put up here, see, this is why it's so good. When it says piti, they call it zest here, so we call it joy. But then sukha, they call it number 6, is joy. So it gets a bit confusing because we are saying that the piti is only, I know it's only words and it's semantics, but I think if you remember it, just like piti is what you experience, it's like more mind, like when you see the mirage, and the sukha is more the experiencing of it, which is the happiness. Because when you use these English words, see, in this sukha is called joy. Now, what we have always said that the piti is only this joyful interest, and sukha is happiness. So the words get a bit confusing if you stick to the words. So I don't know whether it's right, but I prefer to think piti is more mental, right? When you see, like you're going in a desert, you see that and you get very happy because you see in this mirage of water. But it's only when you drink it that you get the sukha, because you experience what it's like to quench the thirst. Because otherwise, one to see the words are all getting mixed up here.
Where did you, well, even in the jhanas, Preeti was zest, and
yes.
Sukha was
happiness.
Was it happiness? Yes, it was.
Yeah. Zest and joy. Yes. So that's exactly what you describe now also. And that is what I have also always written. When you breathe in, experiencing piti, you can call it rapture, you can call it joy. Last time you said call it joyful interest. That's fine. And when you breathe out second time, in and out, you call it sukha. Sukha parisampayadi asyamitsikati. So that's happiness. But here, what you have put out here on my screen, unfortunately, Bhante, I didn't have the link, so I haven't printed it out. So I'm just depending on your link. Look at that. Sukha is joy there. Look at number 6. Look at number. So can we say, while we are saying that piti is joy, we are saying sukha is happiness, but it doesn't matter, it's only words. But it gets confusing when in this, they are saying sukha is joy, while we are saying piti is joy, and that's what it tells in the jhanas also, when you do vitakka vichara, piti sukha. So piti. So I'm only saying that when you go to the English words, that it gets a bit confusing, Bhante, because in the different things, you read it out here and say sukha is joy, but you're explaining to us the way I have always understood that piti is joyful interest, right? And sukha is happiness. So I just want to say, I think it's just words written at different times differently. If you just remember, because in this
joyful, okay, joyful interest. I remember using the word joyful interest, right?
Yeah.
Joyful interest was another term which was brought in to explain the experience of zest.
Yes.
Right? In the Abhidhamma, zest is right. And even in the Abhidhamma, when we went through the jhana factors, even in the Abhidhamma, it defines priti as zest, not joyful interest.
Yes.
They don't use that word. Joyful interest was another word that we sort of use to explain the experience of zest. Yeah. So I really can't understand the big confusion. Yes, Pushpa.
But Bhante, here sukha is joy. In this, the point is, sukha is joy.
Yes, I think, as Dil was saying, I thought rapture, joy was piti, and then happiness is a more serene, calmer version. You're calm in the initial rapture and joy to a more subtle happiness.
I think the experience itself, it's two different experiences. These are really words trying to explain the experience. So therefore, I think we need to experience it and find it out for ourselves. It's a two different types of experiences, isn't it?
That's the way that I find it, because if you look at the words, they are interchanging the words. But if you take it of that experience, then it's much more clear.
Yeah.
That's just what I was saying.
Yeah. Piti is more exhilarating.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's a bit more thing. Yeah.
Because if you go to look at the words in the what is on our text and what we've highlighted, sukha is only joy, but we've always in Abhidhamma said no, piti is only joy.
To start with,
initial
experience is like elation, and then it's you calm down and you
exactly it's like happiness.
And then when the sukha comes, you are more stable, and you are the experience is different too. I don't know, that's how I experience.
That's how, and if you look at the experience, you don't get confused without
yes, that's right, dear.
Thank you, man.
Bhante, the way I understood it was piti and zest is the physical experience. Is it,
no,
do you think? Zest is the physical experience and piti is the mental experience.
No, piti and zest are both the mental experience. I understand. And sukha is,
it's more calming. Yes, so it's a very different, two different experiences. Initial excitement is calm down second time when it's come to sukha. Elation, and then the calm down sort of happiness or joy. I don't know whatever the word.
Initially, when we were learning Abhidhamma in they said when a person is in the desert and if you see a mirage, you only see it and you think that, and that's piti because you get really elated. You have this stress, right? But then when you go up to there, and if actually there is water and it's an oasis and you drink and you experience it, and satisfy yourself, that is only sukha. And if you remember it like that, you can relate to the feelings that you have without these words, or sticking only to the Pali word, because the Pali words are very clear. The English words only, they are different translators are in different times using different words and interchanging them. And then if you look at the translations, we get confused. But if you look at that Abhidhamma book and how they explain it, you know, like the oasis, I remember that, and the way that Bhante is saying, then there is no, it's very clear.
All right, may I explain now, please?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So for Pushpa, you're not wrong, right? But it is the other way around. Piti is more connected purely to the mind. Sukha is connected more to the body. But what happens in this process when we go through the Satipatthana, what happens in this process is, it is not when we would explain it in terms of linguistics, we would say it is more to do with the body. It is not truly to do anything with the physical or based upon the physical body. But what truly happens is, within this whole body that we observe, right, the sukha is more pervading through the body, whilst the priti is more a mental attribute of being in a position of samadhi, now observing an object. Do you understand? Right? The priti experience hence differs from the sukha experience there. Because sukha, you find a sort of an overwhelming feeling, a saturation feeling in terms of sukha. With regards to priti, you find feeling of being upon the path and seeing where it's leading in that path. Do you understand? Those two feelings are separate. The priti, again, if I might again say, now you're observing the breath, the whole body of the breath, and you can do so, continue the observation so well, right? And as you're doing this, and when the control element is not there, it is purely observation and the ability to observe. Priti arises in a way you know where it is going to lead now, not because you want it to go there. You simply know that it is following upon. It's like putting a paper boat on a river that is flowing downstream. You know the boat is going down, right? Not that you want the boat to go down. You'll be happy if the boat is just floating around there as well, but the boat is going down. And that is more connected with the priti experience, knowing that you are in the path and the right one. Sukha is a more saturation, a saturated feeling, where the mind, the body is saturated by a feeling of joy across the body, or happiness across the body, right? This comes through experiencing samadhi, experiencing a state of mind with one-pointedness. That is how priti and sukha experience differs from one another, right? Although in definition, even my definition, I would give it 100 out of 100. It is very difficult to put those two experiences side by side and explain. However, at that point, you will know, right? You will know at that point, this would be priti, this would be sukha, right? Although you won't even be interested in defining it, right? Your interest will not be in defining it. You will be living it in that moment, right? Yes, Samantha.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so does that mean that it'll be more confidence sort of experience? Would that be sukha?
At this position, it will improve the confidence that you have in the practice and your ability to practice, yes, but that is not the task, or that is not what's important at this moment in time for you, the practitioner.
Yes.
What will be important? What will be important for the person at this point of time is meditating, simply being in the experience.
I just wanted to ask also, Bhante, you know, the jhanas 1 to 4, where exactly do they come in these steps?
The jhanas 1 to 4, we will get into that. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
That's a different explanation. We'll come to that sometime. Okay?
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. So, just to give you something, this section is the entry into jhana, right? This is the entry into jhana. All right, moving on. Sukapa, he trains himself, thus I will breathe out experiencing joy. He trains himself, thus I will breathe in experiencing the mental formations. He trains himself, thus I will breathe out experiencing the mental formations. Right? The mental formations. Chitta Sankhara. Chitta Sankhara. The same method given in the previous note applies to the second and third clauses. According to Ajahn Brahmanso, when the beautiful breath is established, it may appear that is my signal all right? Is it clear? Yes? Okay.
Yes, Bhante.
Yes. The same method given in the previous note applied to the second and third clauses. According to Ajahn Brahmanso, when the beautiful breath is established, it may appear that your breath has disappeared, that you have this beautiful stable peace, but more breath. You are still breathing, but the breath is no longer being experienced as a touch of the body. Instead, it is experienced as an object of mind. You are switching from feeling to knowing. That is why Buddha called this 7th stage knowing the breath as a mind object. Knowing the breath as a mind object. According to some teachers, in the second, the 3 lower jhana are present, and in the third, all 4 are present. Mental formations here refer to feelings, perceptions, and mental concomitants, and which are calmed by the development of successive higher levels of calm and insight, right? Higher levels of calm and insight. So when we arrive at this position of the mental formations, after having gone through all that we have in the previous early stages, we find ourselves in or experiencing a state of samadhi that is beyond any state of samadhi and one-pointedness that we might have experienced before. In this state, we find ourselves now with a skill of knowing the naked mind, if I might put it in that manner. The naked mind, as it is, right? As it is. And at this point, all of these, all the questions that we might have at this very moment as we go through the sutra will not exist at that moment. I will guarantee that to you for sure, right? None of these questions will exist at that moment. Why? 1, hindrances suppress. 2, samadhi. 3, jhanic bliss, entrance into jhanic bliss. 3, the mind becomes vividly clear, right? It will not be, it can be sharper. However, it will be vividly clear compared to what it was, right? And when it is so, at this point, when you direct the mind to now the mind object, which has converted the breath from a physical feeling to a mental object, Now you are able to see the breath in a completely different manner. Your approach to the breath changes. During this process, of course, the mind can be distracted at times, right? But what happens is when the mind is, or, if it sort of goes off the breath or goes off the observation of the mental formation, even that which arises is vividly more clear. Do you understand? Right? So, for example, when we started off, you might have remembered this argument that you had with your husband or with your daughter or your son during dinner time last night, right? During this time of practice, that will not come to your mind. What will come to your mind, the surprising and the beautiful thing about it is, at this point, what will come into your mind, the clarity which will exist is the emotion of hate, the emotion of aggression, the emotion of lust, the emotion of delusion, and it will pinpoint to a specific consciousness feeling that arises. That is the amount of clarity that you will now start touching upon at this point in time in your practice. Is that clear? Does that make sense? Can anyone relate to that? Okay. Yes, Shriyani.
Sometimes I think that stage you can see something that in the past, whatever you've seen, something like a maybe object could come into your mind at that time, or some person, object, or incident, which when I mean, I have experienced something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The
initial stage.
If I am to Shriyani, earlier our focus was on the storyline. Now the focus becomes the chitta. Earlier I wanted a story, a background story to understand the chitta. Now I can see the chitta. Right? Now, please do not misunderstand. I am not in any way insinuating that you will see the Chittakana, right? The consciousness as it appears, but you will feel the spirit of the consciousness vividly, much more clearer than any experience before. And that is at this stage. Polish it. When we then polish it up, then those mental formations is also calmed here.
Can the sound be sometimes unexpected sounds you can hear? And because I do remember very first time when I experienced, I heard a huge crash of something, and I jumped out of my focused meditation at that moment, and I didn't know what happened. I had to go back to, and I couldn't. It disturbed me so much. I had to go back to my teacher and explain to my teacher what happened to my experience.
Yeah.
So then my teacher said that these things will keep coming. This is coming your maybe out of your one of the three roots. You need to start seeing it, but you need to carry on doing it. These things will come to disturb you. It will come and go. And is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. And even at this stage, actually, you will start even feeling the thoughts of other people around you, which is also very interesting to know.
Oh, dear. Oh.
And that is interesting because yes. Yes, Samantha.
Carry on, Bhante. Oh, what you were saying, that's interesting. And
yeah, because you will be so connected in such a manner that, I mean, this is not Parachita Vijnana, but which is the knowledge of being able to read other people's minds. But at this point, you will also become so sensitive that you will feel other people's consciousnesses as well as mental objects. But that is ancillary. That is nothing to do with the practice. You will find yourself in a situation that you feel quite sensitive to changes in mind and elements that arise, right? So Shriyani, that is why I brought that in. These disturbances you will find at this point, you will have so many disturbances arising. You know, it's like the universe just knows when to hit us, you know, and it happens, right? It's only good that we become resilient and just continue along. And remember, these are the 3 lower jhanas at this point, right? And the weaker part of the jhanas, not the more profound, the more stronger versions of the jhanas. These are the weaker parts of the jhanas. So you will hear sounds, smells, tastes. These sensations will come into mind. But as we go on, those with the polishing up of the jhanas, those hindrances will also be removed as the jhanas become more powerful. Yeah, then you will hear nothing. Yes, Samantha.
Yeah, what I was going to say, so when Bhante was saying that, so we're doing Vedana at this stage, so you can see the chitta. So does that mean that you're not in control of, you're just looking at the mind now, and the emotion that will might appear as, because you're not in control of anything, as it appear, what your emotion at that moment is, whether it's lust or hatred or whatever, so that you can see then what you truly are at that moment in time.
Here, remember, Samantha, we are talking about bases, right? Now, for example, when we talk about Rupa Jhana, right? Rupa Jhana. Remember the word, Samantha? Right. Rupa jhanas are always connected to the sensuous plane. Right? Why?
Oh, yes.
Because of the materiality element of the Rupa Jhana. Right? Now, the Rupa Jhana, you have gone into the 5th higher state of the Rupa Jhanas where you feel nothing. Your hindrances are subdued so profoundly, right? But you're still connected to the Rupa Loka. How? Because you go into the jhana through a Rupa element. What is a Rupa element? The nimitta. Do you understand? As long as the nimitta exists, you are connected to the material plane, the sensuous plane. That is why in the arupa section, which certain schools of thought would speak of as a rupa jhana itself, as the 5th jhana itself, right? Some would say it's not the arupa jhana, it is the rupa jhana, right? But in Abhidhamma, we separate it to understand it clearly, because at the point of transgressing the 5th jhana into the 6th jhana, which is the arupa jhana, what we essentially do is we take away the material from the rupa jhana, right? Now, the jhana which was first rupa is no longer rupa, it is called arupa.
Yes.
Materiality. Now, Samantha, that should answer your question. Remember, Preeti and Sukha are the base through which we see Chitta Sankhara. That is why this section, right, it is not essentially Chittanupassana, We are observing Priti and Sukha not as physical entities, but as mental formations, mental objects. Do you understand?
Yes, and that's why it's called it was Chitta.
That is
so you're
why
seeing
in the Vedananupassana section.
I see, yes.
Do you understand?
Yes, Bhante. So through the joy and the Sukha, Priti Sukha, you experience the mind.
Yeah,
the Chitta as
Samantha.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, but to your question, if we might look at it from a different perspective again, right, in another way, your question arises because traditionally we know
Sorry?
We know to experience sensations in a certain way. We don't know to experience sensations as a mental formation. This is the first time we are doing that now. Right? Earlier, with the breath, as we went on, we experience a physicality. Right? Now, we are changing the way we experience the breath. That is why this question arose in your head, isn't it? Because we normally experience as physicality. Now we are beginning to not just look at it from afar, we are experiencing it as it happens. And what is experiencing it? We see, smell, hear, taste, and feel because of the pasada rupas and because the chittas arise at these pasada rupas, allowing the pasada rupa to continue its functionality, isn't it? Without the chitta, the pasada rupa will not exist because the jivita indriya in the pasada rupa will not continue. Does that make sense, everyone? Right? So experience of life happens because of the consciousness, and we are finally now seeing that. How? We experience the processes as a mental formation.
Yes.
ඒක තමයි එකපාරටම අපිට හිතෙනවා උස්ම නැති වෙලා කියලා. Only until we shift our understanding from physical experience to now a more subtle and a finer level of experience, which is the mental experience. Do you understand?
So yeah, so at this stage, there's no breath then. You can't feel the breath. But you can't feel it. Well, I mean, yeah, otherwise you'd be dead, but I'm just saying you can't feel it. Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing, Samantha. It's a play of words. What is feeling? What is feeling? Earlier, we only knew that.
Breath,
now start feeling the breath through Priti and Sukha, which is, let's break it up. A person with hindrances is unable to observe the finer, subtle breath. When the hindrances are subdued, now you are able to feel the subtle breath. When, with the subduing of the hindrances and the feeling of the breath, the samadhi increases. When the samadhi increases, you have a better ability to be aware of the mind. When the mind has a better ability of awareness, now you are able to see the results of that samadhi based upon the breath. Now what are you feeling? You're not feeling the grossness of the breath, you're feeling the results of experiencing the breaths. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Does that
make sense?
Does that not make sense to anyone?
Bhante, is that means mind, watching mind?
Yes, definitely. Most definitely. However, if we say mind, watching the mind, The reason why in the text, it doesn't really point out to a way we use the term mind, watching the mind in later texts to explain that sort of scenario to, people of this time. However, the Tripitaka doesn't use that way of explanation. Why? Because it could give a sense of self.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That is why we don't say mind watching the mind, right? But that is why we use the word experiencing the mind. We are with the mind. The awareness is with the mind.
Okay.
Earlier, the awareness, it was like the mind was giving the awareness support and we were being aware of the physical entities happening around. Now we are not so involved with this. We are with the mind.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes, Bhante. Thank you, Bhante. Yes.
Does that any other question? Samantha, was that clear enough?
Yes, Bhante. Yeah. So I'm just wondering what this next, the Chittanu bit is actually. Chittanapassa. Yeah, that will make it clear, I think. Yeah.
Can I ask something, please?
Yes, dear. Yes.
So, Bhante, when I continue with my meditation and when I'm calming the bodily formation and the breath disappears, what happens to me is that I don't see anything, but I feel this happiness. So there's like as if you topple down into a gap. So the breath disappears, so the bodily thing goes off. But you have this feeling of first of exquisite joy, and then this more satisfactory, more happiness. And that's the state that, so there is, when I'm calm, and the mind has got calm, that's the state that you're in. So this feeling of happiness that you have at that time after you have gone away from the bodily and you've calmed the body, but am I right to say that that's actually the consequences of calming the body, which is actually that feeling, Vedana, is not really a bodily thing, but it is actually the consequences of how the mind experiences when the body forms. And that's what this exquisite pleasure, which becomes a more happiness state is. Am I right, Bhante? That is the way I feel it.
Well, the happiness aspect would arise as a bipartisan experience of the samadhi itself. Earlier, we were unable to tap into this level of happiness that would arise with samadhi because we didn't have the samadhi. Now we do. Hence, we are able to experience and take it as an object of mind for the samadhi, for our awareness process. So it is not as if we had it earlier. We did not have it earlier because the hindrances were so rampant.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, so those mental formations too, we calm, right? We calm in the same manner that we did earlier, right? He trains himself thus, I will breathe in experience in the mind. He trains himself thus, I will breathe out experience in the mind. Right? Breathe out experience in the mind. Now, this is a start of the Chittanupassana, the third tetrad. He trains himself, I breathe in experience in the mind. He trains himself, thus I will breathe out experience in the mind. He trains himself, thus I will breathe in glad in the mind. I will breathe out glad in the mind. He trains himself, thus I will breathe in concentrating the mind. He trains himself, that I will breathe out concentration mind, pulling the mind deeper and deeper into jhana, into the cultivation of the nimitta, right? To go into more powerful and distinct jhanas at that point. He trains himself, thus I will breathe in, freeing the mind. He trains himself, thus I will breathe out, freeing the mind. Right? Breathe out, freeing the mind. Now, experience in the mind. According to Ajahn Brahm, it is only at this stage that you can know the mind. The only place where you can actually experience the mind. By what we call a nimitta, reflection of mind. Remember, the mind is that which is knowing. According to Bhikkhu Bodhi, experience the mind is to be understood by way of the fourth jhana, right? By way of the fourth jhana. Chitta, mind, is synonymous with mano and vijnana. So too, in most traditions following the Abhidharma period, but they were clearly differentiated within the Yogacara. Says that all three are names of the mind base, manayatana, glad in the mind. According to Acharya, the mental reflux, nimitta, may appear to some as being too dull or too unstable, which are addressed by the 10th and 11th steps respectively, shining the nimitta and sustaining the nimitta, right? Remember, this is in jhanic practice, this is very important, because if we are entering the jhana with a practice, and if we have been unable to enter into jhana, if we have been sort of demotivated by long periods of practice, the mind can get dull. And believe it or not, because of the dullness of mind, you might suffer from lack of effort, lack of conviction, lack of moral stability, and all of these things, right? That is why even in the earlier sections with regard to the first, in the third and fourth parts, step 3 and 4, experiencing of the whole breath and then coming to calming of the breath, there was pleasure there, right? There was pleasure there. Remember, you calm the breath once you see a part worth calming. Do you understand? You calm it for a purpose, right? If you're going from dull to duller, why would you calm it? You calm it because there is clearly a sense of pleasure in that process, which is very much clear at that moment. Step 5 and 6, arousing joy and arousing happiness, or zest and happiness, or zest and joy, with Preeti and Sukha, there is pleasure there. Again, reviving that sense of happiness with regards to the practice. Step 8, calming happiness, calming the zest. There is happiness there as well, because you now shift from one type of happiness and zest or joy to a more profound and deeper sense of happiness and joy. Do you understand? Right? So there is that there as well. Now, when it comes to the nimitta, manifestations of the dullness of mind can appear as a dull nimitta. When you have a dull nimitta, it's difficult to get into jhana. Chitte thina prabhashvara gatiya eliyata ganna ona to go into a deep jhana. Right? Chitte prabhashvara gatiya hindama nivarana yatapat vedama. Because of that luminous nature of the mind, the hindrances, like one would sprinkle holy water into a devil's den, it calms, it clears the impurities of the mind, allowing the practitioner to go into jhana, if I may say, with a bang, right? To go into jhana, into a strong jhana, effectively, right? Effectively. That is why we speak about these senses of gladdening the mind, experiencing the mind, gladdening the mind, and through that gladdening, further concentrating. Remember, the mind at this moment knows everything that you have is because of this meditation and concentration and samadhi. Right? So here you balance the meditation, concentration, and samadhi, or if we just use the word samadhi on one side, and then the pleasure of practice on the other. Do you understand? Right? You have to balance both of these parts. At this point, Dhamma, or all the things that we learn, becomes quite secondary to this experience. Right? The Dhamma would, of course, inspire you when you are going about doing your daily things and all of that. But actually, the Dhamma shifts from a theory, a philosophy, to experiential, present moment practice. At this moment, at this time, right? You start experiencing the Dhamma far more. And during this period, if we have a right location, if our living abodes are conducive to the practice, right? Many of the obstructions that you would have experienced earlier, many of the things that burdened you earlier may not bother you now, right? Because simply you're just beyond it. Not in an egotistical manner, you're just beyond it. You don't care about that anymore. You don't care about the apologies that you did receive. You don't care that there was not enough salt in the food. You don't care about any of that. Because this pleasure that you're experiencing is far more addictive, fruitful, pleasurable than all of that. Right? And that comes about that saturation, that blanket of happiness, which just engorges and saturates your life from head to toe. Yeah. So he trains himself, thus I will breathe in, concentrating the mind. He breathes, breathe out, concentrating the mind. I will breathe in, freeing the mind. Now, what is this freeing of the mind? Let us see. Right? Oh, let us finish reading this actually. Okay. Gladdening the mind. According to Ajahn Brahm, the mental reflux nimitta may appear to some as being too dull or unstable, which are addressed by 10th and 11th steps, respectively, shine in the nimitta and sustain in the nimitta. The more joy there is in the mind, the more brilliant shines the nimitta. To enter jhana, the nimitta has to be the most brilliant thing that you have ever seen, and on unearthly beauty, right? The reflux may be dull also due to poor moral conduct or to low mental effort. The reflux may be dull also due to poor moral conduct or low mental effort. In the latter case, one should remedy it by switching it to inspirational meditations like Anusati Bhavana or any of the three jewels on giving or metta, right? Now, the danger here is, as we are, we find it very difficult to balance it. So you start practicing, one of the inspirational meditations and you will find yourself wanting to go and do pink cards. Not that it is bad, it's not. It's just that it is vipassana upaklesha, right? So you must also be careful there, right? Because know that any sort of inspirational meditation that you do, the prime focus is to aid your vipassana, to aid your jhana, to aid your samadhi. Do you understand? And stick to it, because vipassana upakleshas also appear at this time. Your mind will tell you, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to organize a Dhamma talk, you need to do all of these things, which are all good, by the way. All of them will be very wholesome, a lot of kusala and all of that. However, they appear in the mind not with good intentions. The intention of the mind would be to take you away from the samadhi, to take you away from the vipassana. It is a vipassana upaklesha. Do you understand? Right? So, not that I'm putting the pinkamas down or anything, but at this point, If you think I need to do this and that and this and that, what essentially it is a upaklesha that is arising. Like a reflection anusati or any other three jewels, giving chaga anusati. When you do chaga anusati, yes, you will then sort of think about going and doing donations all over the country, all of these things, Again, these are not bad things, but they are things that will make your samadhi and vipassana suffer, right? According to Bhikkhu Bodhi, gladdening the mind is either the attainment of the first two jhana containing zest, or as the penetration of those jhanas by regarding them with insight as subject to destruction, right? As subject to destruction. It can be both, depending on what you are going to or what you want to do next, right? It can be, the gladdening is either the attainment of the first two jhana containing zest, or as penetration of those jhanas by regarding them with insight as subject to destruction. Did you understand? Right? It could be the two jhanas with zest, or it can also arise, gladdening of the mind can also arise when penetrating through the nimitta to break free of those and go into vipassana as well. Right? Do you understand? Right? Concentrating the mind.
Bhante, can I ask something at that point, Bhante, please?
Hold on, one moment. Concentrating the mind. Sometimes even the brilliant nimitta can appear unstable. It is just a reflection of the knower. It is just a reflection of the knower, right? Meaning the instability or the unstable nature of the nimitta can arise as a reflection of the person who is observing it. You will know that the nimitta is unstable, right? It will not be in or attuned to the level of tranquility, concentration that you hope it was, or the place that you are hoping to get to with the calming of the mind, right? If the knower moved, so did his reflection, the nimitta. The solution, according to Ajahn Brahm, is to focus the knower, that which is experiencing this, and calm into stillness. What that means is this: when the nimitta is all over the place, some tend to try to calm the nimitta by focusing on the nimitta. Always remember, the nimitta is a manifestation of the mind. It is like the shadow of the body. If you have a tummy, the shadow will have a tummy. It is simply the manifestation of the mind, a reflection of you. So to calm the nimitta, calm your mind. No other way works. Every other way becomes a upaklesha. Do you understand? Because when you go into playing with the nimitta, you can get entangled in playing with the nimitta and go on. It becomes a very entertaining experience, just watching that nimitta. But that is not what we are here for, right? If the knower moved, okay, the solution according to Ajahn Brahm is to focus on the knower, that which is experiencing this, and calm that into stillness. According to Bhikkhu Bodhi, concentrating the mind refers either to the concentration penetrating to the jhana, or the momentary concentration that arises along with insight, or the momentary concentration that arises along with insight, right? Along with insight. That is the vipassana samadhi, right? The momentary concentration that arises along with insight is the vipassana samadhi, and The other is the samadhi or the concentration that arises in penetrating deeper into the jhana, right? Penetrating deeper into the jhana happens at a couple of stages. One is when you're going into deeper states of samadhi, deeper states of reflection with regards to the nimitta, in order to let go of the nimitta to step into the next nimitta, right? And it can also arise when you're penetrating into the nimitta to go into vipassana. Do you understand?
Bhante, how do you calm the knower? Focus on the knower,
yes,
that which is experiencing this, and calm that into stillness. How do you calm that into stillness? Doing what? Is it just by focusing in the middle of the nimitta, or?
No, nothing to do with the nimitta. Do not touch the nimitta. Let the nimitta be on its own.
So then how do you tell your mind to calm down?
Yes, yes.
So how do you penetrate the nimitta? How do you penetrate the nimitta then?
Right, okay. First, Samantha. Calming the knower, right, is through these parts you see. I will breathe in experience in the mind, breathe out experience in the mind, gladden in the mind, breathe out glad in the mind, constant. Now, this part is the calming part, right? The concentrating of the mind, right? This is referring to that. How essentially you calm the knower is to go deeper into the object. Now, what is the object is the question. Now, Anna, if you are experiencing a sense of restlessness, let's forget this. Simply, if you are experiencing a sense of restlessness of mind, what do? You bring your mind to the object at hand. That is simply the same thing that you do with calming the knower. You go back to the previous thing that you did. Do you understand? Right? Now,
I thought at that
yes.
the object would be the nimitta, wouldn't it?
Sorry?
The object would be the nimitta, wouldn't it, at the Chittanupassana?
No, the nimitta rises on its own as a manifestation of the mind.
Yes.
Right.
So you use the nimitta as the knower will be on the...
No, you don't use the nimitta. Don't use the nimitta as yet. Right? You use the nimitta. You use the nimitta only when the nimitta arises to go into a deeper jhana, you use the nimitta. The nimitta is a tool to enter into jhana and to enter into vipassana. That's the only reason the nimitta is there as a tool. Do you understand?
Yes. When you say enter into vipassana, so the nimitta would guide you to what does that mean?
You're changing the question. Let's answer the first question. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Calming the knower. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Hold on. Calming the knower. How do you calm the knower?
Yes.
If you are experiencing...
I see what you mean. Priti Sukha.
No.
Oh.
You go back to the previous subject, right? Now let us say, right? Now let us say you are in this position, this one right now. It is not really working out well for you right here, let's say. Right? You can't see the gladdening of the mind, right? You can see bits and parts of gladdening. but you don't see enough, or the gladdening experience is not clear enough for you to base your meditation on it as yet. What do? Go back.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Experience the mind and come back to this afterwards. Do you understand?
Yes.
If you're on experiencing the mind and that does not work, what do? Go back to mental formations.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Can I ask something, please?
Yes. Is that clear, Samantha?
Yes, Bhante. Thank you very much. Yeah. The step before. Yeah. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. So when I was at a jhana retreat with Ajahn Brahm, and we were going through these stages, just like how we described here. So when you come to that spot, see what I was asking him, and what he said is that, I mean, my understanding before from reading the books and from what I had heard was that this nimitta, you see it like an orb, and then, you have to go to the extremes of it and we expand and all this. But I was saying what I was feeling was just this feeling. So the mind is perfectly still, the breath has gone, and you are now in that stage of this really happy feeling. And that's what, for me, this glad in the mind is that. So that I was telling Bhante, for me, your mind is bright, not because you've seen a golden orb or anything else. Your mind is really bright because of the feeling. And so what Ajahn Brahm told me is that different people are different. Some people are visual, some people are kinesthetic. And repeatedly when I was telling, he said, you're kinesthetic. So for you, the nimitta is this feeling. The feeling is not coming from the body, it's not Vedana. It's what you said, it is a result of calming the body that you're having this feeling. And so this sense of stillness, and it's very true, because sometimes I have to get jerked, and if you jerk, and if you get you get a tremor going through, then immediately the shadow moves, and as a result you lose it. So he was saying, when you feel those things, just let it be and don't move. And actually when you don't move, when you have this, and for me this gladdening the mind is this mental feeling. It's not a kaya thing, but you're still, and it's very blissful, but you're not in that piti kind of state that you're jerking and things, because then it just goes and you have to go back again and you have to come. So that's what he told me. And he said, don't try to look for a nimitta and, try to polish a nimitta and things. Just keep steady. Realize that for me, because I'm more kinesthetic, I get these movements and things like that. So just when you go, just see that those you don't let them, because you just let it be. And then the feeling gets more and more. It gets more and more calm, and it's so joyous, the feeling. So he said, just be it. And what I realized is the results of that is that you can handle the problems when the worst things happen to you. So quite out of the jhana, right, without you polishing and doing all these things, what happens is that when things happen which normally would really disturb you, say you hear that your child is really sick, or that somebody very close to you has done a really terrible thing to you, you can just look at it and say, that's his business, isn't it? And that is what I find, for me, the polishing, the brightening the mind, and this polishing the jhana is that. And so what Ajahn Brahm told me is that that's the consequence of it, that when you experience this, that what really happens is that vipassana jnana, that this is not somebody doing something to me or some terrible experience, and the fears and those things gradually get noticeably different. Somebody comes and tells you something, and you can say, right, okay, so give the advice, and it just go on. So for me, that is the way I did it. And Ajahn Brahm seems to feel that because when you're more kindly, that's the way it is, and not to be looking and seeing where is it bright or where is it not bright. Your mind is really bright because of the feeling that you have in the mind. So I don't know what to say, but that was his advice to me, Bhante.
Well, thank you for sharing your personal experience, Dil. So, right. So I will breathe out glad in the mind. Any other questions, anyone?
The nimitta?
Yes.
Why would you penetrate the nimitta?
Why would we penetrate the nimitta? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How?
So how, the middle point.
Yeah.
The middle point of the nimitta. You penetrate the nimitta through the middle point. But owing to the reason of penetration, meaning if it's vipassana, it's anicca dukkha anatma. If it is samadhi, if it is jhana, it is you contemplate the weaknesses of the nimitta, right?
Okay, yeah.
That is how we penetrate the.
Okay, yeah. Understand. Yes, that's what I do. Yeah, I understand that.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. So, shall we wrap up the session today? Next week we'll start on the Dhammanupassana. So that was a good recap of what we've done, and we can continue on the Dhammanupassana next week. All right. So take care, everyone. Good night, and we are having tomorrow.
Can you put the link? Bhante, can you put the link on the web so that I can get it on my email and print it out, because I don't have that link.
Yeah, sure.
Bhante, I'm sorry. If you can put it on the web, on the chat, then I can just print out, and then it's much easier for me.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Everyone, Bhante.
Everyone,
Bhante. Thank you.